Thank you. So I guess as Peter said, I'm a Stanford professor and co-founder of Coursera. Most people today will never have access to a Stanford class, but we're changing that. Working with such great schools as Stanford, Princeton, Caltech, Columbia, Penn, and many others, we're taking courses from all of these great schools and putting them online free for anyone to take. We're using technology to offer high-quality education at scale. Let me share with you my story. As a Stanford professor, I normally teach a 400-student Stanford class. A year and a half ago, I put my class online, and it reached an audience of 100,000 students. To put that number in context, in order for me to reach a comparable size audience, I would otherwise have had to teach my normal Stanford class for 250 years. Who are the students? It was students like Akash, who wrote to say that coming from a small middle-class family in India, he would otherwise never have had access to a Stanford class. And students like Jenny, a 39-year-old single mother of two, who had been wanting to return to college and for whom the convenience of an online class allowed her to take a first step. Since announcing the first few classes out of Stanford a year and a half ago, we've grown significantly, and now we have a broad range of courses from many universities and across many disciplines. Let me show you some of our classes.
Welcome to Calculus.
50 million people are uninsured.
Models help us organize information. They help us make better predictions. They help us design more effective institutions and policies. Models, in short, just make us better thinkers.
And if we run this, we get unbelievable segregation.
So Bush imagined that in the future, you'd wear a camera right in the center of your head.
A love poem is a poem about another person.
Mills wants the student of sociology to develop the quality. A hanging cable takes on the form of a hyperbolic cosine.
For each pixel in the image, set the red to 0. So let's see what that looks like.
And that vaccine allowed us to eliminate poliovirus.
Does Lufthansa serve breakfast in San Jose? Well, that sounds funny.
So this is which coin you pick, and this is the two tossers.
0 from being passive, so passive becomes a best response.
So in large-scale machine learning, we'd like to come up with computationally reasonable. Since launching the first few courses, we've grown significantly, and today with 62 university partners, over 300 courses, and large number of students, we are today by far the largest MOOC, or massive open online courses platform on the planet. We actually reached our first 1 million users faster than Facebook, and it took us another 4 months after that to double from 1 to 2 million, and we're at 2.8 million users today. I should say, though, I think this rapid growth isn't because we're anything special. Rather, I think it just speaks to a societal need for affordable, high-quality education. And working with 62 universities really allows us, I think, to be a hub of innovation where we and our partners are together collecting the best ideas on pedagogy, on how to teach a MOOC, and rapidly sharing these ideas with each other. So, why do so many students want to take our classes? I think it is that, first and foremost, they are real classes. The class begins on a certain day. It runs for a fixed period of time, so 10 weeks in the case of my class. This is a plot of the web traffic in my class as it progresses, and those peaks, those regular heartbeats, are homework deadlines. Predictably, the 24 hours before homework is due, web traffic spikes, thus proving that procrastination is a global phenomenon. And finally, if a student completes the homeworks and meets our high grading bar, they also receive a certificate or similar that they can put in their resume and use to find a better job. Let me show you what our courses look like. Like many others, we use video-based instruction, and this is what a typical lecture video in our classes might look like.
Game, and generally we'll start with some set of.
I just want to highlight 1.5x accelerated playback.
And then we have to decide what are their strategies. So what are the possible actions?
English captioning, which is useful for non-native speakers of English,
distinction in order to
as well as crowdsourced foreign language captioning with the foreign language captions written by student volunteers. And I guess we learned that, you know, in a normal classroom, in my Stanford classroom, I used to just slow things down and just blab, right, and make space in the classroom to make sure that everyone has enough time to be following, because different students need different time at different points in the class. And if you lose a student halfway, they might be lost the entire lecture. So all of us tend to just slow things down and blab and make space. On an online course, we found that many students prefer to play back our videos at 1.5x speed. And if you miss something, you just do an instant replay. And this allows students to control the pacing and allows them to make much more efficient use of their time. With the video format, we can also post online videos in a large variety of formats, ranging from instructors going out into the field to do field work, to interviews, to Google Hangouts with groups of students, to very creative formats. In UPenn, Kevin Werbach, UPenn's gamification class, the professor, Kevin Werbach, perhaps appropriately decided to teach his lecture 1 in his persona of his World of Warcraft, this computer game character. So when you log into that class, in the first video, you see this weird monster, show up, and that weird monster starts teaching you about computer games. Beyond having hour-long videos of professors talking, we also encourage instructors to take concepts and break them down into 10-minute bite-sized pieces. This allows instructors to also post optional prerequisite and optional advanced material, and allows students to navigate through the content in their own order and at their own pace, moving us away, I think, from the one-size-fits-all model of education. And finally, the other reason we use video is it turns out to be easy to create. This is a picture of me in my little recording studio shooting one of my machine learning classes lecture videos. So if you're an instructor and you feel like creating one of these things, you wake up maybe on a Sunday morning, right? You feel like shooting a lecture video. Well, what I would do is wake up on a Sunday morning, brush my hair, walk into the lecture video and just shoot a 10-minute video and have that be posted. So a very relaxed process. So talked a lot about the lectures, but the class is much more than lectures. As educators, we often talk about assessments, and we sometimes, but we know that the far more important purpose of assessments isn't just to assess or to evaluate student performance. Often it is the assessments or the homeworks that's what causes learning to take place. We know that students learn best not by passively listening, but by practicing with the material. And there are many pedagogical studies, such as this, which show that it is retrieval practice, or being tested on the material, that's what causes long-term retention to take place. Because of this, we've built pervasively into our courses many opportunities for students to practice with the material. This goes all the way down to right in the middle of a lecture. Let me show you an example of what we call an in-video quiz.
These 4 things: prospect theory, hyperbolic discounting, status quo bias, base rate bias, they're all well documented. So they're all well documented deviations from rational behavior.
So right in the middle of a lecture, the video pauses and a question pops up, and student gets to attempt an answer, not quite right the first time, so they get to go back and edit their answer and try again. They get it right now and see an explanation, optional explanation, before the class moves on. And so I want to contrast what you just saw with my experience, and perhaps that of many of you as well, teaching a large lecture class. In my Stanford class, when I ask a question in class, usually half the students are still madly scribbling away, trying to write down the last thing I said. In my classroom, I find that about 10% of the students are usually zoned out on Facebook. And invariably, there's that one smart kid sitting in the first row that just shouts out the answer. Then I feel great that someone answered my question, and the class moves on with only one student having gotten to engage with the question. In contrast, on the website, the video pauses and a question pops up, and every student gets to attempt an answer. Every student gets instant feedback on whether or not they're understanding the material. So I think it's ironic that a large lecture class can actually be more that an online website, I think it's ironic that an online website can actually be more interactive than a large lecture class. Beyond the in-video quizzes, all of our homeworks, most of our courses also have, beyond the in-video quizzes, most of our courses also have more serious weekly homeworks. This ranges from the ubiquitous multiple choice to short answer questions to math expression questions, where here we ask the student to take the mathematical derivative of sin x over x, and our software understands all the mathematically correct and equivalent ways of writing out the derivative of sin x over x. In collaboration with Alex Aiken at Stanford, we've been developing software to also do automatic theorem proving, automatic derivation checking. So those of you that have graded math problems before might have had a similar experience to me, where year after year, if you ask students to do a proof, I'll have students write down one step, write down another step, write down another step, and then there's this magical and therefore step, and suddenly the right answer appears. But on the website, we can ask students to enter every single step of the derivation and check that every step is justified, and let them know right away if they're off track, or let them know right away if they're writing down something that isn't quite justified, and we can grade all this automatically. Excuse me. We can also grade structured data. So a spreadsheet is an example of structured data. So we can have students build, say, a financial model in a spreadsheet and upload the spreadsheet and have that be auto-graded, or build circuit models, chemical, mechanical engineering models, and auto-grade all that. And finally, we can also auto-grade computer programs by running unit tests against computer programs that the student submits. Let me show you an example of the loss of these, of how we auto-grade computer programs. In this example, the student is asked to do a color correction exercise. So they're writing the code, writing a program right into the web browser. Student hits run, and the output of the program isn't quite correct. Statue of Liberty is looking a little green. So the student goes back, edits it, hits run again, and it says output correct at the bottom. So that's the level of interactivity of some of our classes. Now, so far, one talked about many options for auto-grading, and one of the nice things we could do with auto-grading is implement something called mass relearning. Here's what I mean by that. In a normal Stanford class, in a normal UT Austin class, if a student submits a piece of work and they got 60 out of 100, you know, what can you do, right? The student gets back their graded work, they put it in the folder, and the class moves on. And we sort of have to do it this way because we usually have the resources to grade a student's piece of work only once. But what this means is that I think far too much of education today feels like we're going to students and telling students, you know, you're a B student, that's a C student, and that kid over there is an A student. But I think that education shouldn't be about telling people who's a B and who's a C and who's an A student. I think education should be about helping every single student succeed. So for many of our classes, we implement what's called mass relearning, in which we invite students to come back and attempt a piece of work over and over until they get it, so that every student has a firm foundation to build on before moving on to the next piece of material. Now, we don't want students to attempt exactly the same homework over and over. So what we do is instead provide tools to instructors to help them create randomized questions. In this example, the instructor has written a question and written 4 correct and 4 incorrect answers. The first time your student comes to attempt this quiz, the student might be shown those 2 correct and those 2 incorrect answers. If they don't get it quite right, they can go home, study some more, come back the next day, and the next day they see a different random set of options. If they still don't get it right, they can study some more and come back the next day and see yet another different set of options. And this allows students to attempt a set of concepts over and over until they get it right. So I think it was Sal Khan that once said something very profound, which is that in today's education system, what is held constant is the amount of time you spend on a piece of material, say 10 weeks or 15 weeks. And what is variable is the degree to which a student gets it. Some students get it, they're an A student, and some students don't get it, and they're a B or C student. But I think it should be the other way around. I think what should be held constant is that every student should get it, every student should succeed. And what can be variable is the amount of time or the number of attempts a student needs to make before they get it. And with online learning and mastery-based learning, we can actually implement that in our courses. So far I've been talking about auto-graded work, but not everything can be auto-graded. I guess I had an interesting experience slightly more than a year ago, because I learned that if you walk into a poetry professor's office, And if you show the poetry professor your, shiny new multiple choice auto grading technology, and you try to convince the poetry professor to teach a poetry class using multiple choice, he will invite you to exit his office. But university education is very broad, and we committed from the outset to developing technology to allow a broad range of courses to be offered, including classes like poetry, where you might need or want to have students write open-ended, write a 300-word essay, critiquing a piece of poetry or a piece of history or something. Now, one professor can't grade 100,000 essays, but what we can do is get the students to grade each other's work. So there's an idea in the education literature called peer grading, which has been well studied in small classrooms of, say, 50 students. And it's been shown that peer grading gives highly accurate grades. And if you set up the incentives right, self-grading, where students grade their own work, is even more accurate and is also pedagogically useful. So what we did was we took the idea of peer grading, previously done only in small classes of, say, 50 students, and combined them with the computer science idea of crowdsourcing to take this idea to run it in classes with tens of thousands of students. And today we've run by far the largest peer-graded exercises in the history of education. So the way it works is, as a student in one of these classes, you'd be asked to first do the work. So write an essay on something, or maybe hand draw a design on a piece of paper and use your cell phone to take a picture of your hand-drawn design and upload your hand-drawn design to be graded. Or play a piece of music and record yourself playing a piece of music and upload the piece of music to the website. So you'd be asked to first do the work. Having done the work, you then be shown an instructor-supplied grading rubric or instructor-supplied grading guideline that teaches you how to grade other students' work. You would then be asked to demonstrate proficiency in grading. So we asked you to grade a few other pieces of work that the instructor has also graded and show that you can assign grades similar to what the instructor had assigned. And finally, you'd be asked to grade, say, 5 other students' work, and in exchange, you get feedback from 5 other students about the quality of your own work. So here's a screenshot of our peer grading interface for a design class where students were actually uploading hand-drawn designs and getting feedback from 5 other students with a score as well as written comments. And today we've run peer grading in maybe about 30, 35, 40 classes. And we've been able to show that it gives reasonably accurate grades and certainly very useful feedback to students. This image I got from, this slide is actually the work of Mitch Denier at Princeton University, where he and his students did an analysis of the peer grading, and they showed that this is giving, reasonably accurate grades. But we've done this sort of analysis across many of our classes, and I think it works well. I think peer grading was one of the innovations that I think we were particularly proud of. Although, frankly, I think we invented pretty much the entire MOOC space. But this was one innovation that I was particularly proud of because it was key to enabling us to offer a broad range of courses. And so using this and our auto-grading technologies, we've been able to offer a broad range of courses that span the humanities, the social sciences, the basic sciences, engineering, business, law, finance, and other areas. So I've talked about the lectures, talked about the homeworks. From the student perspective, the third and final major component of the student experience is the community. Students learn best not by studying in isolation, but often by having classmates to work with. We serve a very diverse, non-traditional population. 35% of our students are from the US, 65% international, with students from all walks of life. And it's amazing when you bring together this diverse population to talk about the different sorts of topics that we teach here in US universities. This is a map of the students taking the Princeton University Sociology 101 class. One of the nice things about having a class with 100,000 students is that it means no matter what time of day you are awake thinking about something, there will be someone in some time zone awake at the same time as you, thinking about the same thing, and that can discuss it with you. So we developed a discussion forum in which students can post questions and students can answer each other's questions. Because again, as one instructor, you can't answer 100,000 students' questions. So shown on top is a student question, and shown below are answers written by students. We also allow students to vote up and down each other's questions and each other's answers. This causes a good questions and answers to bubble to the top. And I guess in my machine learning class, we had a brief spam attack. There was someone trying to sell shoes in my class, and with the downvoting, that rapidly took care of itself with the community just squashing those posts very rapidly. And I guess because of the number of students we have taking these classes, the last time we measured it, when a student posts a question, the median response time, that is how long you have to wait before someone answers your question, was 22 minutes. And for a student, getting a response in 22 minutes I think that's pretty good. And frankly, a 22-minute response time was a far better level of service than I was ever able to offer to my Stanford students, because I just don't answer my email every 22 minutes. Beyond the online discussion forum, we've also built up a community TA, community teaching assistant program, in which we invite students that had done well in one offering of the class to come back to the next offering of the class so that they can help answer questions and kind of manage the discussion. And so this starts to build a community that spans multiple offerings of the same class. More recently, one of the nice things about having hundreds of students watching a video at the same time is that you can also have live discussions. So in some of our classes, just in pilot stage rather than rolled out broadly, we've piloted out live text chat as well as live video chat, in which if you log in and you see that there are 257 other students watching the video at the same time as you, watching the same lecture as you, then that means you can have a live text chat discussion with them or a live Google Hangout video chat discussion with them. So we piloted these social community features out in a few classes, and we'll be rolling them out more broadly in the coming months. Beyond the online communities, we found that many students also form in-person communities. This is a picture that we took recently of the San Francisco HCI class study group, where students were getting together in person to meet with each other, right? So when I was in, and when I travel to different countries, just for fun, I often go to meetup.com and find local student meetups and just join in the student meetup for a few hours. And you hear from students all over the world with meetups organized by geography, by language, by lifestyle. I think there was a meetup organized by mothers learning to program for the first time. I thought that was cool. And so with the community, I think that gives students much more engaging experience. So I guess as Peter mentioned, my professional background is in machine learning, data science, as a computer science professor. And it turns out one of the nice things about teaching a class with 100,000 students is the data that you can get. So if you think about it, in a typical education study, if you have an idea on pedagogy, if you run an experiment, you might have an experiments group of, say, 20 students and a control group of 20 students. If it's a really large education study, you might have an experiments group of 200 students and a control group of 200 students. If you teach a MOOC, a massive open online class, we can easily deliver an experiments group of 20,000 students and a control group of 20,000 students. And I guess being in Silicon Valley, and probably many of you have also seen, that sometimes just having more data allows you to see trends that you otherwise would not. But it isn't just the number of students, it is also the detail, the amount of data per student. We log every mouse click, we log every homework submission, correct or incorrect. We know which parts of a video a student did an instant replay on, which parts they fast forwarded over at 2x speed. We know when a student visits a discussion forum and which posts they read. And this detail and magnitude of data is unprecedented in the history of education. I would love to do for education what companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft have done for electronic commerce. Only I think that education is an even far better cause than e-commerce. So let me share with you a couple of examples of the things we've done. suppose in my machine learning class, we assigned a number of programming homeworks, and sometimes the student would submit an incorrect solution, and after a while, they get it right. Now, as an educator, what I would really like to know is what happened between their final incorrect submission and their correct submission. So what is it that enabled a student to correct their misconception? John Huang, a postdoc at Stanford, decided to look at visits to the discussion forum. And what he did was do a little calculation, kind of like a mutual information calculation is what it's called, so that for each discussion forum post, he would measure how much does the discussion forum post boost a student's odds of correcting their misconception, right? So doing this computation on all the discussion forum posts in my class, he found that the single discussion forum post, which gave the largest boost to the students' odds of correcting the misconception, was this one. It gave a 30% boost to the students' chance of correcting a misconception. And when I, as the instructor, looked at this discussion forum post, I found that, lo and behold, this gave like the perfect, pithy explanation for what turned out to be a common misconception, misconception in the class. There was a definition of a matrix X that turned out to be a bit ambiguous, and this was like the perfect, post that just did a perfect job clarifying this. As an instructor, it was really useful for there to be software to automatically surface this to me, because this actually caused me to go back and edit the homework to clarify this point of confusion. But you can also imagine if I hadn't gone back to edit this, then the software can automatically recommend this discussion forum post to other students that may be confused about similar things in the future. Let me show you just one more example. So when I taught my machine learning class, a funny thing happened to me. I assigned a programming homework, and 2,000 students submitted the same wrong answer. This has never happened to me before. The students were asked to write a program that would generate a pair of numbers, and this is a plot of all the student submissions. And the big red cross on the upper left-hand corner, that's the 2,000 nearly identical incorrect submissions. So we went and looked at a small sample, looked at about 15 of the incorrect submissions, and found that every one of them had exchanged 2 steps in a mathematical algorithm and just done them in the wrong order. This allowed us to generate a custom error message so that when the 2001st student submitted the same wrong answer, we showed them a custom error message that said, consider the order in which you're doing these 2 steps, and this allows students to much more quickly correct the misconception and move on. So if you think about it, if in a normal class, a normal Stanford class or UT Austin class, if 2 students out of 100 submit the same wrong answer, you probably won't even notice. But it's when 2,000 out of 100,000 students submit the same wrong answer, that's what gives the instructor a very strong signal that there is something to be looked at here. So I think it's ironic that in order to achieve personalization at the level of a custom error message that tells the student exactly what they need to look at, in order to achieve that level of personalization, what was needed was to teach a class with 100,000 students, because that's what gave us the data to make the personalization possible. In education, there's a seminal paper, it's an often cited paper by Benjamin Bloom titled called the 2 sigma problem. What Benjamin Bloom showed was that if you use a standard lecture as your method of content conveyal, then student performance will follow a Gaussian or a bell-shaped curve that looks like that. And what that means is that half of your students will perform above some median level of performance, and half will perform below the median level as denoted by the blue and black figures. If you implement mastery learning, this idea of letting students attempt the same piece of work over and over until they get it right and have a firm foundation to build on before moving on to the next. If you implement mastery learning, then student performance shifts to the right or improves by 1 standard deviation or 1 sigma. What that means is that now 84% of your students are performing above what was previously your median level of performance. If you give each student an individual tutor, then student performance shifts by 2 standard deviations or 2 sigma, What that means is that now 98% of your students are performing above what was your previously your median level of performance. So to those of you that are instructors, won't it be nice if 98% of your students are above average? But the reason Benjamin Bloom called this the 2 sigma problem is we as a society simply cannot afford to give every student an individual tutor. But I think we could certainly afford to give each student a computer, and with mastery learning, which we can implement on the computer, we could push student performance out hopefully 1 standard deviation, 1 sigma. And over time, with improved technology and the personalization that data is starting to enable us to build, I hope that over time we can slowly push student performance out from 1 sigma towards 2 sigma. So in the last year and a half since we've been doing this, I've often been asked if anyone can go online now to take free Stanford classes or free Princeton classes. Why on earth would anyone still pay $200,000 for a Princeton degree? And I think the answer is that the real value of attending a top university isn't just the content. Content is increasingly free on the web anyway. Instead, I think the real value of attending a top school, such as UT Austin or Stanford or Caltech or Princeton, is you're there for the professors and you're there for the other students. To quote Plutarch, I think the mind is not a vessel that needs filling, but wood that needs igniting. And what we're doing is work with our university partners to help create more time in the classroom for the deep student-professor and student-student interactions, which I think is the real value of attending a top school. And so with most of our university partners are implementing what's called the flipped classroom, which Peter, turns out, has been doing for like over a decade here already. But the idea is rather than having students walk into the classroom to be lectured at by the professor for an hour, we instead take the lectures or take the content and put them on the web so that you can send your students to watch your lectures on the web, the week before class. And what this does is it preserves the classroom time for much deeper engagement, for much deeper interactions, which I think is the real value of attending a top school. There have been many pedagogical studies, such as this, which show that these more interactive modes of learning result in much better student outcomes on student attendance, engagement learning, and on student learning, this is not like a 1 or 2% improvement, right? This is like a 30% improvement in student learning. So in my Stanford class, the one that I teach using a flipped classroom, what I do now is instead of walking into a classroom to deliver, I guess those of you that are instructors have taught for a while may have had a similar experience as me, which is that year after year I was walking to my same classroom, delivering nearly the same lecture as I did the year before. I was also year after year telling the same jokes. And after a decade, I really started to wonder if this was the best way for me to serve my students. But now, having put my lectures online, what I do in my classroom is the night before class, I look at an instructor dashboard. That's actually a screenshot from my instructor dashboard to see what students are getting right and what students are getting wrong in the classroom so that I can walk into the classroom to do just-in-time teaching and just focus the discussion on what students are actually confused about rather than just talk about everything. The majority of my classroom time is then spent working with students in small group problem solving. So that students, rather than sitting there to be lectured at for an hour by me, they instead get to sit next to their best friends and work together on problems. And I think this is it's certainly much more interesting for me to teach this way. I'm getting to know my students much more, have much more time to talk to them about research or help the weaker students along. But more important than how I feel about it is that I think it's giving the students a much more engaging and a much better learning experience. So with this, I hope we're helping our university partners to improve the quality of education of their on-campus, that their on-campus students are getting as well. And then finally, the last piece is, I haven't talked about this much before, but I want to share with you our strategy for our current thinking about helping students to show off what they know, I guess. Our classes are serious classes commensurate with the high academic standards of our partner universities. And when a student completes a class, you know, I think they'll have learned something meaningful that they can take to do other things. So we put a lot of thought into, you know, this idea that if you take a Coursera class, we want to give you a way to show what you know and use it to find a better job or what have you. Maybe a kind of personal story, I guess. Last Christmas Eve, I was in Hong Kong with my father, and you know, as is family tradition, my father and I were geeking out, going electronic shopping like we do every year. And then Christmas Eve, you know, while we're shopping, suddenly my dad looked at his watch and said, "Oh my God, it's 2 p.m. I have to go do my homework." And then he ditched me right there to go back to his hotel room to do his, you know, Coursera homework. And so these are, you know, hard classes where students often put in, like even my dad, I guess, where students often put in many hours of work a week to do the homework. And when they do the work, I think it's important for us to give them a way to show off what they did. So until recently, all of us, we've just been printing informal, less formal certificates that look like this. It's signed in my personal capacity, you know, and pretty much the only place that the word Stanford appears is kind of in the disclaimer saying this is not a Stanford class, this does not confer Stanford credit, and we have not verified the student identity. And I think we need to do this because we're printing these certificates with names that, you know, are just whatever someone typed into our website. We don't even know if this person exists, much less whether or not they did the work. To our surprise, organically, and we had nothing to do with this, to our surprise, even with these highly unverified certificates, there were other universities starting to offer academic credit for our classes. So this is a screenshot from the University of Helsinki website in which they were sending some of their students to take our MOOCs. And the students had to do a little more work locally, write an essay, do a local exam or something. And then they were earning academic credit that is good towards the degree at the University of Helsinki. And there's a bunch of universities doing this. But we wanted to let students have a sort of more verified way to, you know, show off the hard work they put into the class. And so about a month ago, we announced what we call a signature track, which is a program in which for a modest fee, we do some work to verify the student's identity. So we actually, you know, check the driver's license or the passport photo. And on every homework submission, we use a combination of a webcam. So we use the webcam to take a picture to make sure it really is you sitting in your computer submitting the work, and also biometrics. So it turns out that the way you type a sentence, your keystroke rhythm is pretty distinct to you. And it's very difficult for me to type the same way as you or vice versa. So we use a combination of webcam pictures and keystroke biometrics, like your unique signature of how your typing pattern is wired into your brain, to verify that it really is you sitting at your keyboard submitting the work. And based on that, we are, you know, issuing what we call verified certificates that carry the logo of a university. Before printing like thousands of certificates with like a Duke University logo, I really did not want, you know, Duke University or other partners printing thousands of certificates only to have a cheating scandal and discover that we printed thousands of certificates to fake people that don't even exist. And so before putting these highly respected university brands on our certificates, I felt very strongly we need to verify that these people exist, that they submitted the work. And so with this program, we're issuing these sorts of verified certificates. And again, I was pretty proud of the technology we put together with the keystroke biometrics and the webcam in order to do this. Oh, right. And then kind of a slight aside on company philosophy, I guess. The way Coursera works is we work by partnership with universities, and any revenue that is brought in associated with a university class is shared between the university and us. So we're actually sort of writing checks to the universities that produce the courses. But before we rolled out the signature track program, the signature track, because it runs up costs on our end, we charge, you know, I mean, $50 for it. But I guess I felt very strongly that, and I guess to most of us in this room, right, $50 is like the cost of a nice meal. But I think to a poor kid in India or a poor kid in Kenya, you know, chances are many of them, not only do they not have $50, they probably don't even have a credit card. So as an educator, I feel very strongly that if we aren't serving like the neediest in our society, then, you know, it's not a bad thing to do, but it's just not it's just not at all what I'm interested in doing. And so before launching Signature Track, I actually told my product team that we need to implement financial aid. And I said that if financial aid isn't implemented, I will hold back the launch of this product. And so what we wanted doing was implementing a financial aid system in which if there's a poor kid in Kenya that doesn't have a dollar to his name, but if he or she would benefit from a Duke University branded verified certificate, we ask them to submit a one-page financial aid application and we just give it to them for free. I feel like as an educator, you know, we do need to find a way to bring in revenue, to keep the university's costs sustainable, but also if we aren't serving the neediest and the most vulnerable in our society, I'm kind of just, it's not the way to do it, I guess. Let's see. Beyond the signature track, the next tier up is of accreditation is earning credit that might be good towards a college degree. So ACE, the American Council for Education, is the most respected organization of its type in the United States that reviews courses for credit recommendations. So they've reviewed 5 of our courses and made a positive credit recommendation for all 5. What that means is that students will be able to take a MOOC and earn academic credit that they could potentially transfer into any of ACE's 2,000 university partners. Before anyone started offering academic credit, before more people started offering academic credit, I guess I felt strongly we want to put in place another level of academic integrity checks. And I think the obvious thing would have been to send everyone to a standardized testing center. But when we talked to our students, we found that was a very unpopular option because, again, if you're the privileged students, that's fine. But especially for the less wealthy or working adults, going to a standardized testing center often means a day of travel, then the second day to take the exam, and the third day to travel home. And 3 days of missed work, 2 nights of hotel, plus the travel cost just makes this, you know, amazingly inconvenient and also somewhat unaffordable for many students. So we decided instead to roll out a different solution, a digital webcam proctoring solution in which students can take a final exam in the convenience of their own home, and we hire a human proctor to watch you via your webcam. And I've seen demos of these. It turns out that, you know, if you've been on like a Skype or Google Hangout chat before, right? You know that if you're talking to someone, you have a computer, if they're looking off to the side, it's actually pretty obvious what they're doing. So with a human proctor watching students taking exams, it's not impossible to cheat. It's not impossible to cheat. It'll never be impossible, but it's pretty good. And I've seen a lot of demos, and it's certainly more than enough to deter casual cheating. And so we started only with 5 classes, we're more over time, but hopefully this will allow students to earn academic credit that is good towards a degree for some of the classes in the future as well. And then finally, maybe the highest tier of security, or the final program we have is what we call is a Coursera for Schools program, in which what we're doing is running pilots with a large number of community colleges and smaller local universities, in which we will take content that is created by our partner universities and stream it to the students in, say, a local community college. So the way this works is if at Antioch, right, university, or say at a small community college, the local instructor can send the students to watch the calculus lecture taught by a brilliant UPenn professor. And what this means is that the local instructor no longer has to spend all their time in content preparation. They no longer have to spend so much time in grading homeworks, because our auto-grading takes care of a lot of that. And this creates more time in the classroom for that local instructor to do one-on-one mentoring, to do the flipped classroom. And so we hope that this will be able to help local community colleges reduce costs and increase quality, and help broaden the reach of the elite universities working with us to help improve education more broadly within the country. And finally, for the students to receive credit, the student can then take a proctored exam under the watchful eye of the local instructor that's been working with them for the last 15 weeks or something. And so this would be another way for students to earn academic credit by attending, say, a community college that has partnered with us to use our content. And so, just to finish up, I guess since many of you are educators, there was something I thought I'd share that I don't often say to other audiences, which is that I guess over the last year, I've traveled to a lot of countries, traveled to a lot of states, and talked to a lot of people about education. And I guess I've been surprised to find that even today, a lot of people still say that a great education should be reserved only for the elite. Even today, a lot of people still say that a great education should be reserved only for the privileged. But I say that a great education should be a fundamental human right. And with technology, we're working to bring it to everyone. Thank you very much.